On this edition of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast, we sit down with Baseball Alberta and Baseball Canada women's national team great Tara Sliwkanich. Welcome to episode 98 of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland. Over the last couple of weeks, Baseball Alberta has had to pivot its usual on-field Girls' Day events to a couple of virtual town halls of sorts. Hosted by award-winning writer Alexis Brudnicki, the likes of Kelsey Lawler, Heidi Northcott, Candy Wyatt, and Paige Wakefield, amongst others, took part in a couple of conversations. The first was about why girls should play the game, while the second focused on how communities can be supported to deliver baseball programming for them. Both sessions were great, not only for building the game in this province, but also for telling the stories of some of those phenomenal athletes. It was my pleasure to act as the MC of sorts for the two sessions, welcoming everyone and then introducing Alexis. Then I got to sit back and listen, and it got me to thinking about telling some of those stories here on this podcast. So this week, we're going to start one of those conversations with Tara Sliwkanich. The Fort Saskatchewan native has been involved in the game for 17 plus years, suiting up for many teams, including 2 national championship winning teams for Alberta. She also suited up for Baseball Canada on a couple of occasions, including the 2012 World Cup of Women's Baseball in Edmonton. Today, she's a policy analyst for the provincial government. We talked about her journey in baseball and much more in this chat from earlier this week. Tara, thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Happy to be here.
Coming off that Girls' Day in Baseball session that you were a part of, I wanted to get your sense of it for those who might have missed it. Having been involved in the game as long as you have, how do you see the game here in Alberta?
Sure. I think that Chris actually had a really good perspective on that, and I'll explain for those who weren't able to join the session. But things have changed a little bit, but it honestly, unfortunately to say, it does roller coaster every year. So some years, some municipalities and community organizations have been able to have all girls teams play, and they've been able to form it, but then the next year some girls drop out and they're no longer able to do that. Some years we have lots and lots of players come out for our provincial team identification camps. So those are ID camps that we hold throughout the province to select our Team Alberta representative teams at the 14U, 16U, and senior women's. And again, year to year, it really shifts between, we have somewhere upwards of 100 total players to select from, to maybe we only see 40 to 50 players across the province. So that is unfortunate that from my perspective, there isn't a whole lot of consistent growth, but certainly I see a big change in the caliber. I would say it has been really increased when I look at the caliber of players that are younger than I, that are playing on the Team Alberta representative teams. These players are coming up with strong fundamentals and really talented, which is evidenced by how many players from Alberta we currently have at the national level.
What is it that's been, in your eyes, that we could do better? How do we improve upon some of that, and how do we maybe make it a little bit more of a consistent effort all the way through?
Sure. I think something that was said in the session that we had was, I think organizations need to take responsibility and do their own kind of work locally. So one of the things that they can do is on their website and in their promotional and advertising for baseball registration is just ensuring that they're using non-gendered language. So not not stating that a league is, boy for boys aged 12 and under, that it's register your player age 12 and under, or exclusively, even better would be to exclusively say like boys and girls baseball, blah blah blah, because I think that we have a hard time with challenging the idea that softball is the girls version of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Building on that, we have to be aware too that when players are coming to registration, that for a lot of municipalities, when they have the two streams, they'll often have a baseball stream and a softball stream, that they're not automatically, and I'm not saying that I've seen evidence of this happening, but it's a good check-in point for the organizations to take upon their own responsibility, do their own kind of inventory of what are our practices like, at the registration table. Are we telling the girls that they have to sign up for softball, or are we leaving it open, right?
Is one of the other things too in this is making sure we keep the conversation going about being a multi-sport athlete as well, because a lot of these success stories that we're starting to see is, hey, the Madison Willens of the group, where you're playing hockey at an elite level and at a baseball level. I mean, there seems to be this thought that you can only do one sport when realistically you don't have to.
Yeah, and I think I mean, baseball across the board has kind of seen this challenge with the rise of summer hockey opportunities. Obviously, we live in Canada. Hockey is a lifestyle here, and many people choose to pursue that throughout the summer, which cuts into kids' opportunities to then play other sports and do that cross training. And what we know from research and a lot of folks, even from NHL coaches to other high level hockey coaches, are saying that kids do need to they don't need to specialize in hockey early on. They do need to play other sports in the summer and take a break. Not only does this help with injury prevention and cross training, but it also helps with mental burnout as well. We want kids to play sports and be active for life. And when they might specialize in something really early, we see evidence that, and this is not just about hockey, this can be any sport. When kids start specializing really early on, we see that they have an emotional burnout from putting all of their energy into one sport and not having that opportunity to, take a little bit of a break and play something else.
Is another one of the aspects to this is, I'll call it the self-promotion side of it. It feels as though, especially when you look at some of the success stories we've had, obviously the Mike Sorokas of the group get a lot of the attention, but even to have some of those kids who make their way to post-secondary, like a Kelsey Lawler down in the States or a Matt Lloyd down in the States, and they come back and are able to teach some of the youngsters, that's going to pay off dividends because the talent pool is going to get bigger and better, because the realization from the kid's standpoint is, hey, if they can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think exposure to those stories and those role models is absolutely critical, and even more so for young female athletes, and highlighting the phenomenal female baseball athletes and their stories that we have in this province, not only for the female athletes, but for our baseball story in general across the province, right? So, exactly to your point, talking about Kelsey Lawler, to not just the young female baseball players, but also to the young male baseball players, and showing them, and again, Kelsey Lawler, multi-sport athlete. She played basketball for her university in Saskatchewan, and now in the States. I think she's playing, I'm not sure which sport she's playing, but definitely a multi-sport athlete herself, that we share these stories about their success, because kids can only be what they can see. And so we do need to, and that is something, again, that local organizations can take on, is highlighting these players' stories.
Speaking of telling stories, let's tell yours. And I want to hear about that moment when you realize that this is the sport you are going to love forever and ever. Do you remember that moment?
Yeah, it really probably very similarly to a lot of the other stories that other female baseball players have was that first year that I made the Team Alberta provincial representative team at the 14U level. Um, and of course my coach was legendary Chris James, who it was his first year coaching in the girls baseball program, and was definitely the first coach to really take me seriously as a baseball athlete. And we were young. I was 12 years old, and so the idea that I could represent my province at a Western Canadian Baseball Championship and play baseball with other girls. At the time, I was still playing softball for my community and baseball. So I was doing both until I was about 14 years old. So when I made that provincial team, that was kind of the first time for me. And then later, later in my career in high school, I played rugby. And so when we talk about some of the other multi-sport athletes like Kelsey Lawler and Madison Willen,
Hmm.
when their dual sports happen to thankfully work out as a winter and summer sport, I played rugby as well in the summers. So that was poor planning on my part. And I remember having a coach when I was still playing 18U AA in for a majority boys team here in Edmonton, actually. And I think it was the second year that I had made the national team. So at this point, I had decided that baseball was, a sport that I wanted to pursue at really the highest level available to me, and wanted to continue making the national team. And I remember this coach, I either came late to a baseball game or had to. I think I came late to like the pregame to our baseball game because I was finishing a rugby match. And he said to me like that I had to choose. And at the time, I remember feeling really disappointed that I was being pressured in that way, because
Hmm.
I still felt that I could play both of these summer sports and still pursue them as high as I wanted to, and then eventually make a choice. I was 17 years old. And I still felt that that was too early. And of course, I after that, I actually played rugby for my university. I played CIS rugby for the U of A for a couple of years, and was invited to an under 21 identification camp for the national team. And again, still playing baseball at the time. Um, of course, my story is that I did eventually choose, in 2012, I wanted to focus directly on baseball because the World Cup was going to be in Edmonton. And so I
Hmm.
did, give up rugby for a couple of years so that I could train fully to baseball. But at the time at 17, I remember thinking to myself, this is too early. I love baseball and I want to pursue it, but I still think that I can, do this other sport as well.
You've had a lot of highlights over the years playing baseball as well. But what was it like? You mentioned the World Cup being held in Edmonton back in 2012. What
Mhm.
was that like playing on your home turf in front of the hometown crowd and having that opportunity that not a lot of people get a chance to do?
Yeah, so that is, I would say, the highlight of my career is that opportunity that I had to represent Canada in 2012 and in Edmonton. And growing up watching the Trappers and the Cracker Cats
Hmm.
play at, what's now Remax Field. Um, and then being able to play on that diamond, pitch on that mound, see my family in the stands, like that was just completely surreal. And then the opportunities that we had to give back that year were just phenomenal. We did a couple sessions with some local organizations and like put on girls camps, and post game when young players are asking for your autograph, like just incredibly surreal. And just I'm really grateful that I had that opportunity to play at that level and the support that I did. in the years leading up to that to train and get to that point in my career.
Speaking of the giving back side of it, what does it mean to you to be able to give back in that way and maybe tell some of these stories, to be able to maybe coax the next generation of baseball players here in this province to glory down the road?
Yeah, so that's something that's incredibly important to me. I have been involved in the administrative side um, for a couple of years, and started my coaching career a couple of years ago as well. And both at the community development level, putting on camps throughout the province, um, and just seeing again, trying to recreate that feeling that I had when a coach took me seriously for the first time as a baseball athlete, and feeling really um, trying to recreate that experience where you feel like you belong, you feel like you don't have to prove yourself to anyone, and that I could just show up and be myself. And that's what's really important to me when we go out and we put on these camps and we coach, is to create that inclusive environment where these athletes can show up and be the baseball player. They're not, they're not the girl on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, push them and challenge them to achieve something that maybe they didn't think that they could achieve. And, not everyone is going to be a national level baseball player, but maybe it's hitting a curveball. Maybe it's being able to, pitch at the U14 distance or whatever it is, being able to hit oppo,
Mm-hmm.
just being able to support and push them and show them that they can have goals beyond, you know, what they thought they might be capable of going into an event, that they come out and they feel confident to push and strive for their individual goals.
I suppose a big part of it too is just the teamwork aspect, being able to work amongst a team, being able to be a part of something bigger than yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk a little bit about some of the greatest lessons that maybe you learned over the years, whether it be through playing, whether it be through coaching, or just being involved in the sport.
Sure. I mean, the biggest teaching that I would say is the ability to cope with failure. Um, Baseball, I mean, it's quintessential quote: baseball is a game of failures. When we go up to the plate, and I was never a strong hitter
Mm-hmm.
by any means, and so being able to cope with those strikeouts and or ground outs time after time, and still being able to want to put the work in, and also come back out defensively. So a lot of these I would go out and maybe strike out, and then I'd be the last of the inning, and I'd have to get right back and get ready to play third base or get ready to go out to the mound, and and have to put that behind me and be able to set my mind to defense and be able to execute the play that comes my way. And especially in pitching, like, you have to turn it off immediately and be able to turn it back on.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, I was DH'd when I played on Team Alberta and the national team.
Now you're working as a policy analyst for the government, and I'm curious, anything from the ball diamonds that you translate into the working world nowadays?
Yeah. I guess one of the things is being able to work with diverse teams, and being able to, I think through where each person's strength is and where each person can contribute to a team goal, and really being able to kind of put those things together and in order to succeed. So in my work, we have to do we work collaboratively with individuals and departments across the government, and we have to find ways where we have to find solutions to really complex problems where there's not an easy, simple answer. So we really have to understand what people bring to the table. And I think my years of playing on a team sport where it's an individual sport within a team sport, I think some people describe it as, where you have to recognize an individual's contribution to this overall team goal, and everybody brings different strengths. And yes, we might have weaknesses as an individual and as a team, but how are we going to bring those things together in order to achieve this common goal, and being able to understand and work towards that?
If you had a message for those young athletes out there who are maybe on the fence about playing baseball or any organized sport for that matter, what would you say to them?
I just have to say to do it. That even if there are people who, might think or say that you don't belong, get out there and do it. The benefits of playing sport, in particular baseball, is lifelong. You will make lifelong friends, and playing sports just gives you such crucial skills for being successful in school as you get older, and then eventually, a long ways from now in their careers. That it's so not worth not trying. Like, you have to try and go for it, and eventually you'll find a sport or an activity that you really enjoy, and just stick with it.
Final question for you, and I ask this of every guest. What does the game of baseball mean to you?
Oh, goodness. Really, it's funny because even though I'm not an active player anymore and I'm currently taking some time off coaching, I still feel like baseball is my life. And I actually met my spouse through a connection to baseball. So it really has rounded out and been an aspect of my entire life. And I know it will continue to. So I really thank goodness for my parents for putting me in putting my siblings, my older siblings, first in baseball, and then carrying that on to me, because I really feel like baseball has literally given me my identity, really. And again, strange to say as a non-active player, but I really still feel that baseball is just such a huge part of my heart and my life.
It really was wonderful to catch up with you, Tara. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks again to Tara Sliwkanich for joining us this week. And like I said, we'll have more of these conversations in future episodes. A big thanks to all of you, as always, for downloading and listening. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button on your podcast provider of choice. And if you're able, leave us a rating and review to help spread the word about what we're up to. Until next time, thanks for all of your support, no matter the platform, of Alberta Dugout Stories.